Hey folks, I'm here to do a mini lesson on this says versus this shows, how to become a boss at commentary. So, you guys have been doing a really great job of introducing your quotes and providing enough context, which is the C part of races. So, now we're moving on to that E part of races, which is the explanation. And some teachers may call the explanation commentary. Some of them may call it analysis. Some may just call it explanation. They are all the same thing. However, you say it, the idea behind it is that you are explaining, commenting, or analyzing, or even evaluating how your example that you selected supports your claim. And that's the E part of races. So, this is the part that actually sets your writing apart from anyone else's. And I want you to think of it in terms of sports. So when I think of sports commentators, you may hear that phrase sometimes, a sports commentator. There are people who are commentators, and there are announcers who are simply the play by play announcers. Someone who's doing plain sports play by play, those are the ones who are just giving a step by step summary of what is happening on the field. So they might say, number 42 hits the ball to so and so, catches it. Number three slides into second, and whatever. They're just saying exactly what is happening. The commentator on the other side of this is not only perhaps giving you this step by step of what's happening, but more so they're commenting or evaluating the plays that were made on the field. Were they effective? Were they not effective? Were they fair? Were they right? Was that the right call? How were they executed? Was this something that they've never seen before? Sometimes a commentator might offer insight that you may not recognize just by looking at the game. So they might say, this was the fourth time in a row that this player was able to effectively create that play and be successful. So they're giving you background and insight. That's what you want to do. You want to be the commentator. You don't want to be the play by play announcer in the E part of races. So let's look at this example here. This one over here, we have, if you were here on the Google Meet on Tuesday, we looked at this. I changed it up ever so slightly. So that's why I'm showing it to you again. We have here, it says, it's been weeks since Jonas last took his pills. One afternoon, Jonas spotted Fiona. He thought and noticed before my quote, I have context, that's pink, and who's doing the talking. He thought, so that's Jonas thought. For a fleeting instant, he'd like nothing better than to ride peacefully along the river path, laughing and talking with his gentle female friend, but he knew that such times had been taken from him now. This shows Jonas wants to spend time with Fiona, but he feels like that is impossible since the rules of the community have taken that away. So, yes, this writer wrote this shows. That doesn't mean they actually showed much of anything. And what they actually did this. They actually wrote what this example says. So they just gave down here a play by play of what happened in this quote. That is not at all what we want. We don't want the play by play. We don't want you to paraphrase what was already said. We want you to comment on what was already said. So in this example, same context, same introduction, same quote. We have here instead, this shows that Jonas is beginning to feel resentful of the choices the elders have made for the community. Lauer uses the word taken to highlight how Jonas feels stripped and cheated out of love. So you see here, I'm commenting on what was done in this example. I'm actually showing you my thinking about it. Technically, I could write, I think this shows that, and that would make sense. Am I going to? No. But I could because this is my thinking. Whereas in this one, would I write, I think Jonas wants to spend time with Fiona? No, absolutely not. Why not? Because I don't think he wants to spend time with Fiona. That's what the quote says. He wants nothing better than to ride peacefully along the river with her. Do I think that he feels that the rules have been taken away? I don't think that. I know that because it says it right here. He knew that such times have been taken away from him now. So again, not the play by play. We want the commentary. Here's another example. And again, if you were here on the Google Meet, you may have seen this. So in this one, again, we have on the left-hand side, technically, this person did a this says. They did not do a this shows. So after this quote, which is at the end of chapter 18, when the giver has just kind of warned Jonas to stay away from the river so that the memories won't be released to the people. After that, then he laughs a little, but the laughter was not lighthearted. His thoughts seemed to be elsewhere, and his eyes were very troubled. Then it says, this shows that even though the giver laughs, it's not a happy laugh. He's distracted and he appears troubled. So right there, you see again, that is a straight up play-by-play, which means all I did was write what this quote says. Instead, I want to do what I think this shows. So I think, and I'm not going to include this when I actually ham this in, I'm just putting it there to hold the place. I think this shows that the giver's laughter appears out of worry. His growing concern and troubled eyes, see, I took the language there, foreshadow that something may happen to Jonas. And then I would even take that out. I could even, if I'm going to go crazy, I could take out that this shows that. And then I don't even have to be as repetitive, right? And I don't have to have a paper that sounds like a formula. So do you have to write this shows that? No, you really don't. And it might be time for you to start pulling that stuff out. Okay, next. I have another example. Jonas wonders why the previous receiver, Rosemary, failed. The giver explained his methods of Rosemary's training, to Jonas. Notice how I have context. I'm setting the scene, and I'm also stating who's speaking and who he's speaking to. The giver explained his methods of Rosemary's training to Jonas, and this is what he says. I couldn't bring myself to inflict physical pain on her, but I gave her anguish of many kinds, poverty and hunger and terror. And in this, I'm trying to prove the idea that Lowry's exploring physical and emotional pain. So how did I come up with some commentary? Let's see. So I'm going to start by examining character. So what is this example making me think about character? So I think that when this scene happens, the giver felt that since the receiver was female, he could not face giving her physical pain. He perceived physical pain to be more excruciating to the gentle girl than emotional pain would be. If I look at it as theme, this example might say that I'm thinking that this example shows that physical and emotional pain are very different. Often emotional pain is much worse and it's longer lasting. I could even look at this as word choice. And this word here, anguish, stands out to me. Sometimes it's a word that is not typically said, that is powerful, that should stand out to you. So I might say something like, Larry uses the word anguish to show how powerful the pain of poverty and hunger can be, as opposed to that of physical pain. Anguish carries more power than just saying plain old pain, right? So let's see how I would put this together. So we have here, in the middle of the novel, Lowry explores the topic of physical versus emotional pain. Jonas wonders why the previous receiver, Rosemary, failed. The giver explained his methods of Rosemary's training to Jonas. And he says, and notice what I did here is I put what we call a colon. That's the two dots. So he explains the methods of Rosemary's training to Jonas. I couldn't bring myself to inflict physical pain on her, but I gave her anguish of many kinds, poverty and hunger and terror. I think this shows that, and I'm not going to include that. It's just a placeholder, that Lowry uses the word anguish to highlight the power of emotional pain as opposed to physical pain. In addition, I think this shows that, I'm going to say this in my head, the giver feels a unique connection to Rosemary as he felt uneasy about giving her physical pain. Perhaps this is due to her gender. Okay, so there, I'm now going to take out the I think this shows that. And now I have my commentary. Let's do one more example. So I have a question here based on chapter 18. Chapter 18, you have some questions where I ask you based on this chapter, and people aren't always using the examples from that chapter. Make sure you're reading what chapter the question is asking you about. So based on chapter 18, how does the author contrast Jonas with the giver? So I have here my answer. The author contrasts Jonas and the giver by showing how rebellious Jonas can be, as opposed to how much of a rule follower the giver can be. For example, the giver warns, I'm glad you're a good swimmer, but stay away from the river. And again, I could have put there, I think this shows that. That might help you to see that this is commentary. I think this shows that, in a whisper. The giver's not willing to rebel against the elders, even though he's frustrated by their rules. He's adamant that he will stay and help the community if something were to happen to Jonas. This shows his commitment to the people, whereas Jonas questions jumping into the river and already defies the elders by sharing dreams with Gabriel and throwing away the pills. So I'm going to take the I think this shows out. So hopefully you guys are able to see now the difference between what something says and what something shows. You are always looking to do what this shows. This is what we are aiming towards, okay? You're going to try your best. Don't throw out everything you've already learned. Make sure you're still introducing quotes. Hope you're enjoying the book. Hope you enjoyed this. You can rewatch this as many times as you want to remind you and to help you. Remember, do not write I think. That was just there to help and guide you, but do not use it in your writing. And that's about it. Ask any questions you have. Take care.